welcome to the SaaS Revolution Show, 0 to 10 edition. I'm your host, Alex Zuma, CEO of SaaStock, and delighted to be joined today by Mads Fosselius, who's the CEO and co-founder of Dixa. Welcome, Mads.
Thank you, Alex, and pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, excited to have you here. As I mentioned to you before we were recording, that this is the first episode of a new series that we're doing within the SaaS Revolution Show, called 0 to 10 million, where we chart the journey, of a company and a founder from their journey to 0 to 10 million in ARR. So excited to test this out with you. We've got 6 others, great founders, kind of lined up that we'll hear their journey from. And I understand for Dixa that it was fairly sort of recently, a couple of months ago, that you crossed this milestone, which is a pretty big milestone in a SaaS company's life. So congrats on that.
Thank you, Alex.
So Mads, let's kick off. First of all, we know you're a CEO. We know you co-founded Dixa, and certainly those that are listening, we've just informed them that. But who are you, as a person? Who is Mads Fosselius?
Yeah, great question. Not the question you give most often. It's much more about the professional side, but of course that is a combination for sure. So I've been since I was quite young. I've been working in this industry actually. So we don't have to go all the way back to childhood. Then to the young years, I was actually starting my first real job in Copenhagen was being a contact center agent. So I actually started, on the floor, taking phones, dealing with emails with angry customers and happy customers, and trying also to sell things through telemarketing to people. So I've definitely done my fair share of challenges in that world. I quickly moved on into becoming a customer service manager, then going actually directly into IT and software development within the call center, contact center space. So we were working in this big BPO in the Nordics, one of the largest in Europe at that point. So dealing with customers like Dell, Interflora, and many of the e-commerce darlings out of the Nordics. So it was a great time being there in my early 20s and actually dealing with quite sophisticated technology, starting to build software with my team, and then also dealing with very big customers. So that was me on the professional side in the very young days. I'm a keen goalkeeper. I really tried to become a professional goalkeeper, but that ended around that 18, 19 when I went to business school and started partying and began to look much more into the nerdy side of things, being a software developer and being focused on customer service tech. So other than that, today we can fast forward because we're probably going to go through some of the questions, and then I'll touch upon how we got to Dixa. But today, proud father of 3 boys. So a lot of football is still in my life. As you know, I never made it to the Premier League or anything, but I did play in the 3rd best series. So I'm trying now to get my kids to do the same, or maybe go into software and SaaS one day. And then I have my amazing wife being very supportive through many companies. So Dixa is my 4th company. So she's been with me on these many crazy journeys. Living just outside Copenhagen, but traveling when I can. Not the past year to our offices in London, now also New York, Melbourne, Berlin, Kiev, and many other places. So that was kind of the quick one, at least from youth to now. And then there's a lot of stuff in between that we'll cover in it.
Sorry, I didn't know that this is your 4th business. What would you sort of quickly tell us about the other 3, and what did you learn from those, and what are the successes or failures on that?
Sure. So all the business I found has been centered around my idea and vision around ending bad customer service. So let's look at today, but that was also the same thing 15, 20 years ago. More than ever, customers, they are increasingly seeking a real connection with brands, right? So, and vice versa, by the way, via meaningful relationship, by different touch point, different channels. That was actually the same back in 2000. So what I did at my first company, I tried to build the first, omni-channel solution, not by building everything from scratch like we did with Dixa, but trying to glue things together, legacy platforms like Avaya and Cisco and Genesys, and the rulers of the world back then. That was the first company, 3 guys that came out of this BPO. We were basically the development team that then spun out and then started our own company. And we had that for 5 years, very successful, building contact center, call center platforms, and the software in between, where they had huge gaps, especially on the omnichannel side. And then that was acquired by a French Nordic cloud provider called Cirque. So Cirque was a cloud company focusing on collaboration and customer engagement, so customer service, and big partnerships with Microsoft, Avaya, and Salesforce. So our software then became a very important part, actually the central platform for this company. And then we started to develop a lot of self-service apps and everything. And we really saw a company going from like 30 employees to 100. And we witnessed again the same problem, that even though we tried to solve the omnichannel challenge with building, glue it together, stitch it together, we even had Zendesk coming in as a part of the puzzle. It was the best, not of the worst, but it was the best that we could do in the Nordics and France, and many brands came on board, where we tried to get them out of the silos. Didn't succeed, but we did very successfully. So after 5 years, it was acquired by a huge telco called TDC, just like British Telecom, the incumbent giant out of Scandinavia. And that was a very successful exit, the first big exit for me, to be honest. And also was basically the catalyst to starting Dixa, which we did very secretly under the radar. We were allowed to do, but I don't think they knew what Dixa was about. And then just before the acquisition by TDC of Cirque, we basically sat 3 guys in a kitchen, 4 people in a kitchen, 4 friends, that founded Dixa, and then said, we have now witnessed for a decade at least that we cannot glue things together. We cannot build some software overlay or in between. We have to start from scratch, guys. Crazy idea, super ambitious, and very few investors in the beginning believed that we could pull this off. So that was those companies are very much, I would say, a forerunner for Dixa, and it took me quite some time to get to the realization that we had to start from scratch, build it from scratch, and actually build a complete platform in order to conquer the world and build the one platform to replace them all, the ticketing systems, the call center systems, and the live chat and what have we today. Yeah, so that was a story on those companies.
So it seems obviously. Well, after 3 businesses and the big exit, instead of retiring into the sun or the local kind of beaches and summer houses, that your life's work was really trying to figure out this kind of puzzle and solution, and now this is what you're doing with Dixa. From those 3 businesses, that's been that progression to what you're doing now. So when you I guess you had the idea, you sat around the table, how long from that idea to you actually launch the product, or you had a product to launch?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it took much longer than we had ever anticipated. So our great idea of taking out all of the vendors in the different silos in the big industries, there was, of course, a reason why they hadn't just done it, because it was super difficult. So it took us actually from late 2015 until the late 2016 before we were able to have just a beta product, and we could try to get some of the e-commerce leading e-commerce brands of the Nordics and kind of co-develop like a very customer-centric, low practical MVP approach. So we basically built it with Interflora and a company called Saxo.com, very big in the Nordics, like an Amazon kind of company, and then Bosch actually as well. So we're very lucky that they wanted to, build with us, so to speak. Of course, it was our vision around omnichannel, conversational approach to everything, no ticketing, no CRM system, no B2B kind of thing. That was very clear, and they wanted that these were consumer brands. And then finally in 2017, we could soft launch in Scandinavia, mostly in Denmark. And some of the customers paid, some did not, and some were POC, some failed. But actually Interflora, Saxo, and Bosch are still with us today, which is a great story. So it actually took us all of 16, all of 17, before we then globally launched in January 2018. So that was when, a true SaaS company with a lot of inbound activity, self-onboarding, and ready on phone, email, and chat. So kind of close to omnichannel at least back then. Then Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp was not that big at that time.
Tell us about that global launch then. What was the launch strategy, the global launch strategy?
Yeah, so what we did, we got our first seed round in December 2017. So we kind of wanted to align that with now we were funded. We had seed capital, the largest early stage fund out of Denmark. We had Preben Damgaard, was a very famous business angel in Nordics. He was the gentleman that sold Navision to Microsoft in a $3 billion deal. So really good start, and some people that were very close to us, that have been following us for quite some time. And that kind of resonated well in Nordics, but also in Europe. And we used the PR effect to actually get customers in the closed markets. But it also started as a classic marketing push where we didn't have a lot of money. That we got 1.5 million in our seed round, so we had to be careful about our marketing budgets. But we did some smart things. I think we did some cold emailing from our lead team out of Kiev in Ukraine. Really great, amazing people, university degree, really smart and personalizing. So we were very personalized, very picky on the e-commerce brands we wanted in Europe. And the marketing campaign, as customer friendship platform, we went out with a new thing, death of tickets. We were very provocative in the way we went about it. So we actually got a lot of signups and customers I remember the first customer was from South Africa, and the second one was from Australia, and then, followed many different countries, including UK and US. So the first quarter, we really had a successful launch, but we also did a lot of initiatives, and some of them, to be honest, did not work. So we did a pretty big thing on the back of TechCrunch Disrupts that didn't work, but we got investors, so that was nice. We were just not a fit for other SaaS companies. We knew that, but we kind of thought that was a great effect. So we also did our fair share of mistakes the first 3 to 6 months. But the global launch was a success for sure.
And what about product market fit? So how long roughly did it take you to get product market fit, and what were the things, would you say, that you did to kind of enable you to get to that point?
Yeah, I think we were a little bit lucky and blessed that we came from the previous company that was acquired by the big telco. We knew that the pain was growing every month for these e-commerce brands. So we had a love and an understanding around e-commerce brands. And that, of course, also were retailers going online, and it was also kind of the booming industry around direct-to-consumer brands. They are all, e-commerce brands. So that was a pretty big vertical we could go after. And because we've built so closely with these customer service champions out there, and we actually had some of the first hirings we did into customer success and pre-sales, they were actually former directors of customer service. So they knew exactly what were their structural way. And we find out that 9 out of 10, maybe today it's 8 out of 10 of these companies, they sat with 3, 4, 5 siloed systems, one for phone, one for ticketing or email, one for chat, one for analytics, one for social media, and so on and so forth. So we knew the fit was great, and we knew that e-commerce brands, the most important thing for them, besides, of course, having a great brand, a great platform, a great product or service, was to differentiate and be stellar at customer experience and customer service. So it's still one of the biggest ICPs, ideal customer profiles, for us today. So we knew it, but the challenge was, of course, these brands were also quite sophisticated. So we had to go in and say, okay, X brand, what is your biggest pain right now? And many many had huge pain on phone, and then they started to having big pain on the email side. So we kind of went in with a kind of a land and expand approach, which was good. Otherwise, it would be impossible for us to get in, because we will come with a big platform and saying, okay, we have to replace 5 systems. What are you talking about? And you have been here for like 3 months in the market. So I think that land and expand thing, on very focused on e-commerce, that was the right approach for us.
And on your journey to the first million in ARR, what were some of the key challenges that you had to overcome? And perhaps maybe some of the tactics or strategies that you employed that really helped you get to that first milestone?
Yeah, I've been asked this question before, and I think for some maybe a surprise, or it's taking a little bit the SaaS romance out of things, unfortunately. So as much as we grew from 0 to a significant ARR amount by inbound and from many different countries in the world, we knew that our platform was actually really great for mid-market. So SMBs were great. They, 3, 4, 5 customer service agents, we definitely saw a great fit. But the more data you have, the more conversations, the bigger the brand and the more consumers you have, because we are primarily for consumer brands, but today we also for B2B brands. But back then, so we knew we had to go, we knew we had to use our brand and our platform vision story to speak to our close markets. So we had to go out, my first 3 months as, official CEO, I am the co-founder. I had to go out selling. I had to, through my network, through great relations, going on the highway and meeting customers, because we knew we could get great brands that are great brands in the Nordic, but some of them also international, like Interflora. Everybody knows Interflora, the florist. And the most effective way was that we actually, all the people that could, especially some of the co-founders, we actually went into the sales close, so to speak, as we say, and did a great job. So we had the organic growth, the run rate business, and then we had the kind of for us flagship brands that came in from Denmark, Sweden, and also late in 2018, also starting in the UK. And then many of these were consumer scale-ups or startups, so they grew rapidly. And then we were lucky enough to get on that journey. A good example is the food tech darling Too Good To Go, which is fighting food waste around the world. Now also in the US, they are close to 1,000 employees today and over 220 customer service employees in our platform. But they started with 5 agents, I think. So that dual strategy was the right thing, and that got us very, very quickly. Actually, already within 9 months after the global launch, we hit the 1 million mark. And that was the trick to do that in dual mode, and not just sit there wait only for the product-led growth or the inbound to kick in.
No, great, a great approach, and 9 months is a fantastic time to hit that mark. I'm going to ask obviously the same question in terms of getting to 10 million in revenue, some of the challenges that you had to overcome. But before I do, as we were talking about you, I don't know, wearing the sales pants or jacket or however we sort of describe it, certainly, for founders, it's often sort of recommended that this is something the CEO should do, right? In that certainly 0 to 1, or people say, the first couple of years, it sort of depends. And the question is, I guess, kind of like, now you've passed 10, how much time, if any, are you spending on sales and then speaking to the customers? Because I guess it can be 2 different things.
That's a great question. I spent not 0 time, but most close to 0 time in doing sales. So if getting investors is also selling, but the selling to customers, I don't do that more. It's been some time since I did that. But I am attending quite a lot, as many as I can, where it's relevant, executive briefings and then calls with our existing customers, of course, but also with new great brands that we want to to get inspiration, get insights, and of course also when we are in process. I just did that today with a amazing UK-based direct-to-consumer brand, and it's super important, and it's a thing I will never miss if I can. I'm not saying that much. I promise the CRO and the VP sales and the sales people to not interrupt, but I am listening, and I'm of course also giving the vision and the journey, which is important for me also to articulate to these.
And so then on to the question about the challenges in getting to 10 million ARR. Like, if you can pick out a couple of those that you solved, had to overcome to help you get to that milestone, and also be interested to know like the length of time that it took you. As we know, 9 months to 1 million. How many years to 10?
Sure. So first off, we can take the numbers. So when we went January 2019, we had just over 1 million, and we went from 1 to 4.2 in 2019. So we 4x'd kind of the revenues, the ARR, and the primary reason was that we succeeded in getting into mid-market. So we didn't drop our SMBs. SMB is very important for us still, and some of them are growing, many of them are growing, and it keeps you on your toes because you have to be, efficient, automated. You have to be self-service oriented around your platform and all those things. I think everybody knows about that. But it was a bet, to be honest, because it's a very difficult industry to be in. It's very fragmented. There's a lot of competition, especially from point solutions that are doing well on one channel or one area. So being a platform, you really need to understand your place, and that you can only be strong if you kind of get it all, almost like get all the channels. If you just go in and being one channel, of course, that will not give the benefit to the brands. And for mid-market, that pain and that value is much bigger than the SMB. So we lifted our ACV significantly. We went in above 10 customer service agent and got more and more amazing brands globally, over 100 agents as well. And that was the only way we could, sustain that growth, but also because our product and platform become more and more relevant in that market space. And then we expanded, which was difficult, to be honest. We also did our fair share of mistakes. We went into verticals we went out of again. But we expanded from e-commerce direct to consumer and went into slowly into gaming. By the end of 2019, we went into not all fintech, but went into like insurance tech, went into transport and delivery. So we expanded where we could see the product market could be reused, so to speak. And then we had to double down. And that was tricky and tough on our integrations. We had to introduce a VP partners person, and it can take years to get any benefit out of being the platform play and then investing heavily into integrations, because we had API. We were born with web services and APIs and all that, and that meant we could reach broader. We could get into an ecosystem where we played well with e-commerce platforms, of course. That's where we came from. But also agent analytics platform, dashboards, all those things that are in the SaaS ecosystem that are relevant for customer engagement, at least. And that was tough because we honestly burned a lot of money, right? We had a great A round by the end of 2018 from Project A Ventures in Berlin, to like 14 million. But still, doubling down on go-to-market, on marketing, and product engineering was a big bet, but it paid off. But sometimes you see it doesn't pay off. And again, the learnings, maybe we went a little too broad, to be honest. So we had to cut back on some of the verticals that were too difficult or too enterprisey. But it was great learning. But it wasn't like a straight line. It was like navigating from left to right and then figuring out, like summer 2019, we could see that now we can continue doubling down, and that's where we had huge growth from summer to December, from July to December, and then that year ended kind of with close to 4, as mentioned, or 4.2 actually, and then we closed the Series B round with Notion Capital just before Christmas, and then it was announced the year after, January, February.
What about international expansion? So I know a lot of companies, and certainly I think when we first started SaaS Doc, like you get to kind of Series A, they started to look at the US because the market was, it's the biggest over there in terms of software spend. But what's your kind of story around international expansion and how that has benefited or not benefited growth?
Yeah, I think it's a good point, and there's no secret that we had a lot of interest and a lot of talks with VCs from the US when we kind of were slingshotted into the Series B, because we're actually just looking at an extension round of the A to exactly focus more on our product engineering, but also making I would say a balanced investment into the US, but that then became a B round, also because we had a lot of interest from the US. However, what we saw, we were not ready to go all in on the US, but at the end of 2019. So we actually choose, I would say, the go-to SaaS investor of Europe with a lot of experience in taking European companies to the US. Notion Capital is a SaaS-only investor, as you know, in TradeShift and on Babel, Paddle, a lot of great companies. And that was important to keep, like we have in Project A Ventures, was a operational VC helping us with a lot of gaps, because when you grow so fast and you're building a platform to disrupt a decade-old industry or a lot of big players, then you have to make sure your product market fit and your organization is ready to scale. So personally, I would hope that we could have done it in summer of 2019, but looking back on the advice we got from our existing board and from many great people, it was a very, very wise decision, and to also have a VC, a partner out of London, very close to us, that knew the game for the next big adventure. And then I think the biggest benefit, if you can, which is super difficult, and there's a lot of travel, a lot of headaches, and you have your sales team out of Copenhagen, London, or Berlin, or where you are, working odd hours to get US clients on board. So we succeeded in getting some big companies and brands on board within gaming, within food, within different both B2B and B2C tech, and now we have the foundation to actually go all in, more or less, in the US. So we now have an office in New York. We have a sales organization ready there. We have some of the sales leaders sitting in San Francisco and Chicago, and now we can actually this year, which we will. I'm pretty sure this is the year where we're going for a Series C, and I think that's a great way if you can get the foundation before you get the big round from an American VC. I'm not saying it has to be an American VC, but it would make sense for us, I think, now to take that into account when we run a Series C round.
Is it sort of gone are the days of the CEO or the co-founder having to start the US office or having to move to the US office? I'm sure you've thought about it, but like, are you planning that? Hey, we're going to grow this global, billion-dollar business, from Denmark. I mean, I just saw obviously like Trustpilot just IPO today, right? We're seeing it's happening more and more, right? But it's certainly, again, looking back to 4 or 5 years ago, if I look at companies like Aircall and some other kind of European greats, they've often put their CEO in very early in the US. So yeah, what have been your kind of personal thoughts around that?
I think that still is important, to be honest, whether it's the CEO or another great C-level person or co-founder for that matter. It has to be someone with the roots in the culture and the founding journey, so to speak. Otherwise, it will be too difficult, especially from a cultural and talent perspective. So that's definitely still in the cards for us. It's just very important that you don't leave your home market, so to speak, too early, and you keep your foundation in Europe, where you have product support functions, you have all your loyal customers, and you have a very big market in EMEA as well. But that said, no doubt, Aircall, Intercom, Zendesk, all the Zendesk also coming out of Denmark, like Trustpilot and Unity. Many great examples of this working. I do think you don't have to do that early anymore, because we are truly global, especially after COVID. We are a hybrid or remote organization, so many things can be done. But as you are scaling and taking in an American investor, for instance, I think it's important, and it will be important for me. So there's no there's no promises, but that has been discussed many times here at home with the family as well, and of course with the investors and board and the executive management team in Dixa. So we will do that. The question is when. It could be soon. We just need to be able to travel first of all. But I agree. You have to do that in order to conquer a market like the US. And 55% of our total addressable market is in the US. For our type of platform and industry.
The question not only when, but where, and I guess potentially now you've got more options, because again, what we've seen with the pandemic is that now Miami's becoming a hotspot for being a tech hub. So maybe that's more attractive than San Francisco. Who knows? But
Miami sounds nice and warm, but at least I think East Coast is an important first stepping stone when you are a European-based tech company, and then of course having presence in San Francisco. We already have that from the commercial side. Yeah.
And so, like, you've obviously got experience in 3 other startups and businesses. Were you CEO across those businesses as well?
So the first one I was CEO, the second one I was COO. You can say I went in as part of the acquisition, so almost got the title as co-founder, but of course I couldn't be. But I was leading the company with the CEO and also with our current chairman of the board. He was also chairman of the board of that company. We took then the company to exit and basically took old stuff, to be honest, and new stuff, and combined it into a unified platform. Very successfully. So this is the I would say second time as a real founding CEO, and then I also had 2 years, almost 2 years in the very big telco on earnout, and also waiting for Dixa to lift to get its wings out, and that was my first corporate C-level role, or SVP. That was 550 people inside that telco. So I have a very small, medium, very big corporate, and now a scale-up journey with Dixa to become the global leader within customer experience.
And obviously, I mean, we would think experience helps you to be a better CEO, to be a good CEO. What are the things that you've kind of done, or I guess kind of learned and experienced that have really kind of helped you be, I guess, the CEO that you are today?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because that is by far the most difficult thing I've ever done. Even though it's really tough to be in a big political telco corporation or a very small company where you have to do everything, like 5 to 15 employees, like my first startup when I was young. In a startup going to scale up very quickly, many funding rounds in a few years, the toughest thing is to almost change every 3 or 6 months. As you need to step more away from the operational side and not being too detailed, but still you need to have a touch with it, because if you just think everything's gonna fly like beautiful smooth processes and all that, there's still the only constant is chaos, right? Still, when you need to control it. I think I have the benefit of being both in a corporate company, a mid-sized and a small, kind of in my journey, and therefore I can balance the operational and strategic from I would say operational standpoint or management standpoint. But on the leadership side, it is probably the most difficult thing. I had this great opportunity to talk about game changers, hiring game changers on SaaS Remote some weeks ago. And I'm very, transparent and humble about that. That is the most difficult. The only way you can step away or step aside and move up, being more holistic and spend more time on the branding and hiring and strategy and funding and all these important things as CEO, you need to have the right people in all positions, in all layers of management and leadership. And I definitely have learned, would have loved to learn that before, how much time you need to invest and how much you need to understand from a personality, from a talent, from an experience perspective to really figure out who are the right people that can help you with that. Because otherwise you will become a bad CEO. You will not have enough people in your management team and in the different leadership teams throughout the organization to actually be accountable, to have the empowerment and responsibility. And that's been a journey. I think it is for everyone, but there's not so many talking about it because it is super difficult and becomes, in a scale of years, it becomes evident for that. That is the thing between a success and failure. And I still have a lot to learn there. But I'm very happy to say today that I'm far from the smartest guy in the room, which I'm very happy about. So, and that's not only in the management team; it's in the different leadership teams in the different area organizations. So I think the most important thing you can strive towards is become a facilitator that align the people, the leaders, the stakeholders, the investors around the vision and the journey, even though it is challenging from time to time, even though you will be challenged on cash and funding and metrics and everything, you need to stay firm on that. And I'm trying to be good at that every day, but still have a lot to learn, to be honest. So stay humble and stay visionary.
If you could go back to the time when you founded the business, from obviously what you know now and have experienced on your journey, what advice would you give yourself?
That's a very, very good question. I think it links a little bit or relates to what we just talked about. I would have loved to have told myself, if I could travel back, that I should invest much earlier in process and people within the people and culture and talent acquisition. We did it quite early compared to many other companies out of Copenhagen or the Nordic region, but not early enough to figure out who can you take on this journey, not just for a year, right? Because even though that is the case for some people in this journey, you can do things from a talent acquisition data point of view, from networking point of view, that will put you in a much better position. So I would have loved to do that and then have more advisors on that specific area earlier on. Today we have that, and that's been a big learning. Other than that, I think I probably would tell myself and to all founders out there and CEOs, be super proud, sometimes go up in the helicopter, look a little bit more holistically at what you're building, and truly believe in your vision, even though investors tell you that, oh, there's also many competitors and that's not differentiated from everyone else. And that's the nature of SaaS. It's the most competitive and amazing area to be in. But of course, it is a lonely job being a CEO sometimes. And therefore, you need to give yourself time to be proud of what you're building, regardless of what stage it's in. Whether it's you're getting your C round, you're getting your first paying client, getting your first beta test through, really remember that there's a lot of people not doing what you're doing because it's very difficult, especially from a personality perspective.
I think on that advice, it's a fantastic place to sort of wrap up the show. So really want to thank you, Mads, for being our first guest on 0 to 10, which is a sub-series of the SaaS Revolution Show. Where can people find you online if they want to connect and follow you?
LinkedIn, Twitter, and of course the Dixa profiles. I'm also pretty active in everything from our LinkedIn to Instagram to Facebook. And I will also be on Clubhouse soon. I promised many people in Dixa to do that as well. But yeah, please reach out. And I'm also to be found in various SaaS Stock TV areas. So please feel free.
Good stuff. If you're joining Clubhouse, you have to join the SaaS Club, and you'll come on, and we'll have to do a session on there. for sure.
Would love to do that for sure.
Good stuff. Thanks so much, Matt Fosselius, CEO of Dixa, for being a great guest today on the SaaS Revolution Show 0 to 10 edition.
Thank you, Alex. Great to be here.